One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question. I'm here at the 2018 AFCA convention and I'm joined by Coach Victor Santa Cruz. Coach Santa Cruz is currently the head coach at Azusa Pacific University. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Thanks, Ty. Appreciate you having me here.
Now, Coach, you've been at Azusa Pacific University for 17 years total, 12 of those years as a head coach. And about 5 years ago, the university decided to make the jump from NAIA to Division II. Can you tell us how that move helped out Azusa Pacific in terms of visibility, recruiting, and success in general in terms of athletics?
Yeah, great question, and it was an outstanding move for our university. We have a great tradition coming from the NAIA. We found a lot of success, and the organization served our university well for the time. As the landscape changed in Southern California area, and as our university brand began to develop, we found that in the visibility side of things, the athletic brand wasn't being aligned with the school brand, and we did the research and found that the transition to Division II would really help us out, and it would help us out in three things. Is one is helping us out in giving us a best practice research models for how do you build an athletic program to the next level. And the NCAA has put a lot of research into that. And so that gave us a good blueprint moving forward for our university. And two, it's just brand awareness. And, when we were recruiting in the Southern California area or even the whole Western region area, we were finding our coaches were having to do more talking about explaining what was our affiliation, and we wanted to get that conversation piece out of there because the NAIA had essentially moved back east, and so the Midwest to back east, and out west are really one of the many NAIA schools, particularly playing football. And so what the brand alignment with the NCAA Division II immediately when we crossed over, it took that conversation piece out of there. And so now I always told when we were talking about going to Division II, I said these prospective student athletes, they don't know how the history of the university, they don't know necessarily the great things of being in the university. All they can do is window shop. And when they're window shopping, they're quickly going to say, okay, well, who are you based on how I can interpret the brand awareness or the brand alignment? And so NAIA for us, they didn't understand what NAIA was. These young people weren't growing up with that around them. Division II, they quickly understood what that means, and the high school coaches, they knew what that meant. And then as far as success goes, for us as a university, we're ready for that new challenge, and it definitely was a new challenge. Our first year in 2012, we were 0-7 at one point. Did we have the ability to become a great Division II program? Yeah, we believe so, but it's a challenge, and it's very good competition. You have outstanding coaches, and that created the new impetus for us to say, hey, we're going to grow and get better as coaches and as a program, and it was great.
When the athletic director, president, when all the powers that be were making the decision to do this, were you at the table and discussing those things?
Yes, and then what I appreciate about our President Wallace and Gary Pine, our athletic director, was they brought the whole athletic department together and said, well, if we're going to do this, we do need to have a corporate buy-in. And so they gave a lot of conversations and ample space for coaches to disagree. And there were some coaches that said, no, we want to stay in AIA, but overwhelmingly, though, the department said, you know what, we're ready for this. It's going to be good for us. And that, as President Wallace' leadership, I think that helped us get through it together. I'm going to speak only for my university, and what I appreciated about it, there was a real collective team effort. The consultants told us that most athletic departments will pretty much, whoever goes into the process, those coaches probably won't end up out of the process. Because of just the transition being harder, the different criteria you have to hit. And for our athletic department, we were able to stay intact, and you have some of the same coaches that started the process who are now still leading their programs.
Right, and you mentioned something. You said that being in the organization you were in NAIA, didn't match to the brand that Azusa Pacific had. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, it didn't match in the sense of the brand of the NAIA as our stakeholders were interpreting it. And I say our stakeholders are the Southern California area high school coaches and prospective student athletes interpreted that as a very regional type of brand. And that's not what our university is. We're a nationwide brand as a university. And so the NCAA Division II branding and the allegiance to them and the criteria that they hold us to align well with, hey, this is what our university is really about. And so immediately when we became Division II, the high school coaches and the student athletes accepted it and said, okay, you're now a viable option. And that, were we a different university the day after? No, but it's essentially the power of branding. And that's what you have to understand, that you have to accept it. You can push it aside and say, well, that's just the young people coming up. Well, no, that's the next generation that we're supposed to be educating. And so we want them to come to our university so they can leave with the worldview that we're trying to help them educate them in.
Exactly. And have there been other sports, because you were relatively successful. I think 2 or 3 years in, you went deep into the playoffs, the Division II playoffs. Have the other sports on campus been successful in that transition also?
They have, and baseball and basketball. I know track, and I know women's volleyball had a great year this year. So there's been a collective call to excellence, and when you have the high-level competition that is Division II, you're going to find a way to compete. I think that we're in I'll speak to my athletic department. On our meetings, everybody's trying to figure out how to help each other get better, and that's, you want to keep growing. And I think it speaks well to my personal values that I want to keep growing as a professional. And in this transition that we were able to lead through, and I thought we did a very good job to become now a successful Division II program. It spoke to that competitive spirit.
Well, Coach, I think it's important that we had you on today, because I know there are a lot of schools that transition from NCAA to Division II or want to make that transition. Right. And it's not a knock against NAIA, just better for their university. And you have been successful at the course. I've been watching you for the last 10 to 15 years, and you've been successful in that transition and represent the university well. And even though the consultant said a lot of times the coaches don't make it through, you were there and actually able to stay and continue to create and maintain a successful environment there at Azusa Pacific. So I think it's been great.
Yeah, great. Well, and for all those other schools that are anticipating or even thinking about it, it does start with leadership, and our president did a great job, our athletic director does an outstanding job, and then a collective buy-in to say, hey, we're going to make it through the tough times, because it was tough. It was a transition, and it did take some longer nights to learn the process, but I think we've done it well, and we're going to continue to try to get better.
Think about one more question here. The number of scholarships. How was the fundraising process to be able to support the scholarships?
That was another good added bonus of it, in that, yes, the scholarship level is a bit more and that you're allowed. And while our university didn't have necessarily that money to give right away, it created a great motivation for the fundraising side of it. We had a cause and a calling to go to the alumni base, to go to to all of our donors and say, help us in this transition. So in a lot of ways, the transition created the catalyst to broaden our development base and bring in more fundraising. And so now from that transition, you have now new donors that are involved, that they've got the buy-in. Hey, we helped the transition happen, and now really they love the athletic programs. And so sometimes you need that catalyst just to say, hey, there's a new reason to get on board. And so you'll lose some of those donors that engaged for that moment and helped you, but we still have a lot of great friendships and new development opportunities that have come from it. And so now you're looking for that next transition to happen for us as, we say, okay, no longer do we want to just be Division II. We want to be dominant in Division II, and those donors can get behind that as well.
Well, this is excellent. I appreciate you taking the time here to talk to me here on One Question. I've always appreciated you and the things you do for the football coaching profession.
Well, I thank you all you do for our industry, Ty. Appreciate it.
That was Coach Victor Santa Cruz. He's the head coach at Azusa Pacific University, and this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.